You're going to create the first layer for outlines. These are rough drawn, sketchy outlines of the shape of the objects as well as the texture. I'm also roughing in the areas for the shadows. I'm giving it another layer for the shadows, specifically for coloring in the shadows, and choosing a neutral shadow color. These are rough areas right now. We are doing the underpainting, if you will. So starting to use some colors on a new layer for the apple layer, and we're using a lot of colors. We're using a lot of different opacities. I am switching back and forth between softer brushes and harder brushes. I'm changing the brush shape, the brush size. I'm going back and forth. I'm zooming in and zooming out, changing the colors pretty constantly and trying to approximate the colors that are in the actual apple. Adding a new layer for the spoon coloring, going back over the shadow areas to give them a little bit more depth, removing some of the shadow areas, going back to the apple and cleaning up the edges a little bit with the eraser, turning off the outline layer to see where we're at, and it's too transparent, so I need to add a little bit more opacity to those colors, turning back on the outline layer and adding in more opacity to the colors that I was using. Also starting to use a smaller brush with more hardness to give it a little bit more texture and start painting in those texture fine lines. As you're painting and you want to select a color that you've previously used before, hold the I down on your keyboard. You will get the eyedropper tool and then click on the desired color that you want to switch to. You'll see the lines are starting to, my reference lines are starting to disappear, and that's okay. In the end, we're going to get rid of them completely, so it doesn't really matter if we overshoot or if we paint over them. Continuing to add more color, fine lines. Coloring in some details for the stem. Switching between layers, adding another layer for shine at the very top, and choosing a very light color with some opacity to give it a little bit of shiny spots. Same with the spoon, added a little bit of shine to the spoon, and here I'm erasing the extra messy outline around the spoon, trying to give it a nice smooth shape. So working on the spoon layer, now I'm back on the shadow layer and fading those shadows out. Shadows tend to fade as they move away from the subject. Working on the background layer, a new background layer to create a nice background for the whole image. And that's the painting process in a nutshell.